playing with my magic 8 ball, so that can only mean one thing. It's time for another edition of the Cybersecurity Matters podcast. I'm your co-host, Dominic Vogel, and joining me in the studio in Vancouver on a lovely sunny day is Mr. Christian Redshaw. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, but my question is, when are you going to join me in the studio? When's that going to happen?
As soon as that vaccine comes out, baby, I'll be there.
Sounds good.
And I look forward to that day. I miss you dearly.
Likewise, man.
Who is our guest today?
So his name is Andrew Martin, and he is the CEO and founder of a company called DynaRisk. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation because we're going to be talking about something called the dark web. It's largely a nasty place, and you don't want to find your name or your company name there. Yes,
as the name suggests, it is a very dark,
dark,
desolate place. But Andrew is a fantastic individual. I know he's always brings really awesome insight. So we'll take a pause here. We'll invite Andrew in, and we will start momentarily.
Let's do it. Andrew Martin, welcome to Cybersecurity Matters.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So your company is called DynaRisk, and you guys do a very special and important service for companies and for individuals. I'm curious to know what the origin story of DynaRisk is. Where are you guys based, and how did it come to be?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and keep this concise because an origin story can take a while. But I started the company in 2016. I used to work for a number of banks in Canada, CIBC, RBC, in the UK, HSBC, and as I was working in the corporate world, I just kept finding that small to medium-sized businesses and consumers really didn't have the same level of protection that those big enterprises could afford. They could have huge security teams, really great, sexy cybersecurity tools, but for the rest of the market, those tools and those skills just aren't available at a price point that the most companies can afford. So what I ended up doing was I created the world's first personal cybersecurity score. We called it Cyber Expert, and it assesses an individual to see if they're at risk of getting hacked, does dark web monitoring, vulnerability scanning, and some things like that. And originally I thought, well, I'm just going to turn around and pitch this to all the banks that I used to work at, and they're going to roll it out to all their consumers, and I'm going to have, millions of users. Well, that didn't happen. The banks were all very receptive. Yes, sounds like a great idea, but in the end, didn't sign on the dotted line. But I did find that insurance companies were my prime target. Insurance companies were selling new insurance products, personal cyber insurance, ID theft insurance. And that was a really great product for them. And so, all startup companies end up doing a pivot or two. And so we started selling into those insurance companies, and they loved it. And, now we've got insurance companies in about 8 or 10 countries all over the world bundling their product for their consumers. But the second iteration of the company, we released a product last year that we call Breach Defense. And it was specifically to tackle this SME segment of companies where, we kept hearing from our insurance partners, God, we need a tool for small to medium-sized businesses. They're getting hit with ransoms. These insurance companies were paying out a lot of money in claims, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of claims for cyber insurance. Events that were happening in their insured books, and they said, can you please help us with something for the SME and mid-market segment? So we took a year, we built a new product specifically for that segment, and again, we found really great traction with those insurance companies, but also those small to medium-sized businesses direct as well. So foreign exchange trading companies, asset management companies, construction companies, you name it. There's a huge diverse mix of small to medium sized businesses there, and they're dying for tools that are easy to use and don't cost the earth. So we found a lot of great traction in that segment.
I'm going to take the next question. I know Dominic probably has some in the chamber there, but I just wanted to dive in a little bit on what the company actually does. And the big focus, as I understand it, is the dark web. So dark web sounds awful. It sounds like a place you don't want your name showing up in. I believe a lot of unsavory characters like to spend their time there. Can you, in really plain English, whether it's England English or Canadian English or American English, please tell the viewers what the dark web is?
Before we get into dark web specifically, there's three different layers to the internet. You've got the surface web, which is just, you go onto Google, you search for a site, you go to, I don't know, CNN, that's the surface web. Then you've got the deep web, which is, it's the publicly available internet, but these are services that are behind some sort of form of logging into something. So these are web forums or chat rooms or things like that, where, you can't just Google for something in those places and get the results. And then you've got the dark web, and the dark web is essentially a separate internet. It was originally set up as a research project by a government agency in the U.S. to promote freedom of speech. The ability for dissidents to share, publications that they were publishing, or to chat amongst themselves without fear of censorship. But of course, cyber criminals have latched on to the dark web, and because it's an anonymized network, they feel that they can share information there without fear of repercussion from law enforcement. So it's very easy to get onto the dark web. You download a piece of software called Tor, which connects you to this hidden internet, and then you can just start looking for dark web services, forums. On the dark web, you've got places where you can buy drugs and illegal weapons and things like that. But there's a huge trade in stolen or leaked data on this part of the internet, and so we're in there all the time. We're in a number of cyber criminal communities, hundreds of them in different languages all over the world, and we monitor their activities. We see what they're doing. We see attacks that they're planning before they've launched them. We see them talking about companies after they've hacked them. They'll say, "Oh, hey guys, I just broke into this 200-person manufacturing company. Have at it." And they'll sell access to these companies so that other criminals can go in and plant ransom viruses. They'll steal the data from the company, and then they'll talk about the best way to monetize it. It's it's an interesting but very scary sort of network to be in.
Andrew, one of the things which I think you and I discussed it at some point earlier, and but for our viewers and listeners, how do we overcome I'd say there's still that false sense of security with the small and mid-sized businesses, in which you still have many business executives in the SMB market who say, "Oh, we don't have to worry about cybersecurity. We're not a big target, or we don't have sensitive information, or we have antivirus. We're good." What's your message to those organizations that are still stuck in that 1995 mindset? How do we bring them to the fact that it's 2021, and that cyber threat and the cyber threat landscape today is very different than what it looked like in the late 90s and early 2000s?
So for most of the decision makers at these organizations, they might not have grown up with tech like I did as a young kid, and so if you can't see it or touch it, it's not real. And cyber threats, as much as we see marketing material, person in hooded sweatshirt, hand reaching through the computer to steal your money, it's very difficult to grasp these nebulous threats. And it's very easy to think, yeah, this will never happen to me. Those bad guys in Eastern Europe, why would they target my company? And you have to understand that the way cyber criminals work, yes, they might specifically target a bank, JP Morgan, RBC, something like that. But for the small to medium-sized businesses, they just spray and pray. So they'll try and send phishing emails to 100,000 companies. And one of those companies will be yours. I guarantee it. And so it's just a numbers game for the criminals. And then they see what they get. And when they go back and look and see, oh, actually, I got a foothold in this company, and that company. Oh, what companies are these? Most of them are SMEs. In fact, we track over 1,600 companies that have been hit with ransom viruses recently. And 60% of them are SMEs. They're not big corporates. Some of them are, of course, but the majority of them are medium-sized companies. And we've got a specific hacker chatter where hackers are talking about hacking companies. We've got 3.2 million records of them talking about various companies that they're hacking. And they're all over the place. I mean, just before we started recording here, I pulled up some of our data, and we've got 111 Canadian companies that we know to have been ransomed in the last 6 to 9 months. We've got companies in oil and gas, law firms, financial services, construction, real estate, retail, you name it. There are companies getting hacked literally all the time. But of course, no one talks about this publicly. If a 100-person manufacturing gets hit with a ransomware virus, it doesn't make the news. And so as a result, people, they don't hear about cases of similar companies getting hacked. And as a result, they take little action. So one of the things that helps us tremendously is having this data set where we can, walk into a meeting with any client and say, well, here are 5 companies just like yours who have been hacked. And that's the power of being in these communities and having access to this kind of data, because we see the real world examples all day, every day.
Wow. Well, you really led into the question that I was going to ask you is what kind of companies are you seeing there? I mean, if you're spending time there all the time, I find that absolutely fascinating. Can you pull back the curtain for us and talk about those industries? Like, yes, you have examples of all of these different things. Is there one or two in particular that you're seeing more than others?
So generally speaking, we have companies from every sector who have been hit. You name it, they're at risk. Where we see more activity than other sectors are law, definitely law. Law firms transact a lot of dollars going through their business. They are in possession of sensitive information. Hackers know this, and law firms tend to be smaller. You don't get a lot of 20,000 people law firms. There are lots of law firms that are 10 people, 50 people, 1 or 200 people. And as a result, they don't have, generally speaking, compared to the larger firms, as robust to controls in place. So law firms, definitely one. Real estate agents, real estate servicing businesses also get hit quite frequently. Again, anyone who's at the center of real estate transactions, they know, or M&A transactions, they know that if they disrupt that business, that their business will grind to a halt. And when that happens, the business is going to feel a lot of pressure to pay the ransom. They need to get the business back up and running as quickly as possible. And if you're transacting, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a day in real estate deals, et cetera, you do not want to have that disrupted. And so we find that, companies will pay ransoms in those areas. Also, construction and manufacturing. So with these businesses, this is where their IT capabilities are usually a bit less sophisticated than financial services companies. Financial services companies have a lot of regulation, which drive them to have very specific controls. They're handling a lot of personal information. They're handling credit card transactions potentially. So they do get targeted quite a bit, but they have relatively robust controls. Whereas in the construction and manufacturing sector, they have relatively weaker controls because there is less regulation on companies, who are building physical goods because they don't have the amount of personal data that they would need to safeguard, and they just haven't been used to fending off these attacks for nearly as long as financial services companies have been.
Wow, this is the conversation that I've been wanting to have for such a long time. This is exciting to me. Two more that come to my mind that I'm curious about: IT managed service providers and insurance providers themselves, specifically the brokerages. What are you seeing there?
So we work with a few managed services providers, and we're looking to grow that to reach more of those SME businesses. In terms of the managed services providers, they're looking to do more for their customers, obviously. What's great about managed services providers is they've got a trusted relationship with this partner. They've been working with them for a number of years, potentially. And so when we work with a new managed services partner, they go, well, we'd really like to add dark web monitoring, or we'd really like to add this solution of yours into the mix for our clients. And they can just sort of turn it on overnight and then start rolling it out to a lot of different clients. So we really like working with managed services providers. There's managed services providers come in all shapes and sizes. Some just do the actual IT stuff. Some have started to specialize in security because they see that their clients really need that. But we're happy to work with the more traditional companies who are just embarking on embedding security services into their portfolio for their clients, or ones that have been doing some probably penetration testing, let's say, for their clients for a while, but now they want to up their game a little bit and add some more comprehensive solutions. And then on the subject of insurance companies, the trend right now is InsurTech. Insurance companies are no longer just doing policies, pieces of paper that they hope no one will claim on. Insurance companies work out a claims, a loss ratio where they think, 2% of our policyholders will make a claim. And that means that if 100 companies purchase this policy, that 98% of them won't have made a claim on it. And this has driven this need for insurance companies to engage all of their policyholders on a regular basis. And that's why they look to our technology. So the insurance companies provide a cyber insurance policy, which is there in case you do get hit with a ransomware virus. But they want to reduce their risk of having to make those claims. So they give software to their clients to, number one, reduce the likelihood of them having to pay out a claim. But number two, it gives the insurance company's client the ability to actually use software as part of their policy. It keeps the insurance company in the mind of the policyholder. When the policy comes up for renewal, they'll be more likely to renew. And really, it's a win-win-win for everybody. The policyholder gets a bit of tech that they can use, which will proactively protect them. The insurance company is engaging their customer and reducing their loss exposure. And then for us, we get another customer. So it really works well for everybody.
To Christian's point, Andrew, and first off, it takes a lot to get Christian excited. So kudos to you for getting me excited. And the thing that I wanted to ask you as well is that, again, and this is something you mentioned at the beginning, where there's a lot of security offerings which are, again, traditionally being geared towards enterprises, and that there's still so many. Let's say they may be labeled as SMB offerings, but really all they are the enterprise offerings stripped of a lot of functionality, and they slap on the lower sticker price. I'm wondering if you can help me, or at least walk through from a almost like a basic perspective. If we're looking at basic security functionality or just table stakes functionality for small and mid-sized organizations, what type of technologies or capabilities should they be looking at, making sure that they're in place? Again, going beyond just the antivirus and we're good. In your mind, what type of capabilities should small and mid-sized organizations start investing in?
So those types of companies, you got to remember they're either using a managed services provider, or they've got a handful of IT people on staff, and so they just don't have time to put it very succinctly. They don't have time to deploy sophisticated tools and monitor them and follow up on all their outputs and all that kind of thing, install agents and deploy new boxes on the network. It's headache, it's hassle, and it's expensive. So our approach is to do a few different things all in one place and make it really easy. And the feedback we kept getting from our research, our clients, sort of created two segments of functionality that we do in our software. The first segment is the outside-in monitoring. And the three things that we do in that space are the data leak monitoring, where we find stolen username and password combinations. We usually find the CEO's password that has been leaked a few times. That usually gets us meetings. Then we do the external vulnerability scanning. We take a look for known vulnerabilities in web server technology or file transfer software, what have you. And then the third piece of functionality we do is that hacker chatter monitoring, where we look for hackers talking about hacking your particular company or companies in the same sector. And so all of those different components have different levels of sensitivity, right? So the hacker chatter mentions are very, very low frequency, but very high severity. If one of those things happens, you got to get on it. The vulnerabilities are somewhere in the middle. They're moderate frequency and moderate severity. We find some stuff. It's not always the end of the world, but you need to act on it. And then with the stolen credentials, it's we find hundreds of them, and you should act on some of them when we find them. So that's sort of the monitoring component. And then the other component is around training and awareness. So most companies have a policy where they need to train their staff, or there'll be some sort of regulatory requirement where they need to train their staff on how to spot phishing emails, how not to click on suspicious links. And so on the training front, we do very bite-size, low time commitment guides for staff members to learn how to be more secure. And then we do a simulated phishing exercise where the company can just kick off, a fake FedEx delivery notification or something, see how many people click on the link. And if they do, then they get a little pop-up that says, oops, you click on the link, here's how to spot it in the future. And those two components are the two things that we see small businesses needing every time. And even for companies who might do some training, maybe they've got a consultant who does it for them, or they've got some training they get from a managed services provider, but then they won't have that monitoring, or vice versa. So we see the monitoring piece combined with the training piece is sort of providing a very holistic solution for those kinds of companies.
We need to have you back and dive further into this, because there's so much more to talk about.
Well, and just, I'll throw it out there for any listeners. We get requests all the time to have a look into our data set. Tell me if you guys know anything about my company or my sector or whatever. We do this for managed services providers. They'll give us a list of domain names of clients of theirs, and we'll do a check. And usually our check comes back with, you gave us 50 domain names. Hackers are talking about 10 of them. And we've got leaked data records on 75% of the companies. So we're very happy to check into our data set to see if we've got matches for either the companies themselves or a portfolio of companies. And we also do a free trial for our breach defense product, DynaRisk.com/business/trial. No commitment, no credit card needed. You can kick the tires on it. Maybe if you wanted to do an offer to members. Listeners, feel free. But like I said, there's no credit card, no commitment. See what we've got on your company.
Sounds awesome.
That's amazing. We'll definitely actively encourage our viewers and listeners to check that out. And Andrew, thank you again so much for this amazing conversation. Like Christian was saying, I think it's pretty certain that you're going to be a show regular. So we'll definitely have you back in the near future. Really appreciate your time today.
Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome. Thanks again, Andrew. Well, I must admit, it was really fun to see you get really excited about that conversation, Christian. It's you're a fairly even keel person, but to see your excitement meter go up there, that was pretty special.
That's all changing now.
Dying to know your sort of key thoughts from that very dynamic conversation with Andrew.
I'm still excited. I hope Andrew's excited too, although I couldn't tell one way or the other. But man, it absolutely lit me up to think about the world that they live in. They spend time on the dark web, and at any given moment, they can know what these cyber criminals are talking about and what information is where on specific companies and different industries. So what a powerful and helpful thing that is. What a great service to small and medium-sized businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Just hearing Andrew's experience, coming from the big banking world and now trying to take what he saw in terms of the security opportunities that big enterprises have and try and make something which would allow smaller and mid-sized organizations to have that type of dynamic visibility into the cyber threat landscape is absolutely amazing. So what an amazing offering, what an amazing platform, and just such a smart individual. So we're very grateful to Andrew for taking time out of his day to join us. And as part of that, I want to make sure that we thank our loyal listeners and viewers for carving out a small window of time to spend with us. And if you enjoy what you heard or saw today, please do leave a rating on whatever platform that you're engaging on. And if you feel so compelled, please leave some feedback as well. And as always, please make sure to check out previous episodes on the on the Conversations That Matter YouTube page, as well as other amazing podcasts that appear under the Conversations That Matter banner. Until next time, be well, be safe, and we'll catch you next time on the Cybersecurity Matters podcast.